Well, today, what does a rich benefit 401k plan look like? And why should it matter? Today, we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. So is your 401k plan worth the investment? Further, could it be the difference between taking one job or maybe another job with a different company? And finally, why don't we make the 401k plan an important part of the overall job prospect process? Well, to question the use of a 401k plan is considered to be something that makes absolutely no sense. It's been driven into your head as a kid, as a young adult, as you graduate from college or graduate from high school, you get that first real job and you start saving for your future. And of course, there's two things that you definitely do. First, you set up a 401k plan. Second, you start saving and putting that money to work and derive the benefit of compound or investment return over a long period of time. That's always been the wisdom when it comes to 401k plans and retirement. You know, what we like to do on Prudent Money is say, if this is the case, what's the other side of the story? So we talked about the first question at pretty good length about a month ago. We talked about 401k plans and if your 401k plan was worth the investment. We questioned it. We talked about what you should look for. We talked about the 401k plan that made the most sense. We talked about the 401k plan that didn't make sense and the other options that you would look at. So let's first start out and review what I call the 4 tiers of 401k plans that you could be looking at. Then I want to answer the second place that I want to go with this is talk about what a benefit-rich 401k plan looks like. And then why does all this matter? And I think that you'll start to figuring that out as we get through it. But let's start with the 4 tiers of 401k plans. The first tier is typically what you see. Having said that, though, you're starting to see less of it maybe because of the economy and the way things are going with the economy. The first one, though, is a 401k plan with a match. You're probably pretty familiar with this. As an employee, you put in, say, 3% or 4% up to your 4% of your income into your 401k plan because the company matches up to 4% dollar for dollar into that 401k plan. So for every dollar or maybe every 50 cents or whatever the formula is, your company is going to give you money to participate in the 401k plan. We call it free money, and it's something that you always want to take advantage of. And as we've talked about in the past, even if you have a 401k plan that's not so good, you definitely want to take advantage of it up to the point that you get the free money, because the free money is, of course, it's free and it's money. You might as well take advantage of it because it's definitely a benefit that will go on down the road and really pay off at retirement. Now, having said all that, there's also most of the time what's called a vesting schedule. And a vesting schedule talks about how much you own of that match, the free money, from the very beginning all the way till the time that the vesting period is over with. I don't see very many vesting periods that restrict the ownership. That don't restrict let me say it this way: they don't restrict the ownership of the free money, and most of them do. So it would work out like, for example, the first 3 years you may only own 25% of it. The next year you own 50% of it. Then the next year you own 75% of it. Then from there on, the next year you own 100% of it. And any future employer matches that are made. So the very first tier is a 401k plan with a match based on what you put into it. The second one is a 401k plan with a great set of investment options. And when I talk about investment options, I'm really referring to two different types. The first kind of mutual fund that I want to see in the 401k plan is what's called an index fund. It's a low-cost way of investing into the stock market. So let's say that you have an index fund that, and this is pretty typical, an index fund that represents the S&P 500. So every dollar that you put into it is going to mimic what the S&P 500 is doing, or what most people refer to as the stock market is doing on a day-to-day basis. Of course, you've got to have the risk for that, and when we've talked about how to arrange that to increase or decrease the risk in your 401k plan using an S&P 500 index fund. Then the second, we want to see a bond index fund, another low-cost way of investing into the bond market. Now, you might be saying, Bob, you have to have at least, well, not at least, you have to have many more funds to have a very well-diversified portfolio, more so than two. But you got to realize there's really only two investment categories that are covered in any 401k plan. It's either equities or stocks and bonds. And so if you have a bond index fund, you probably have got a investment that is participating in thousands of different types of bonds, all made up into that one mutual fund, that index fund. And then you have a S&P 500 stock fund where you got 500 stocks that you have your money spread invested into inside of the S&P 500 index fund. Hope that made sense. So you cover those two, you really cover your bases. The problem is that, and it's really kind of hard for me to believe, but I would say probably the majority of 401k plans don't have at least both, and you can get by with that. I think the most important one is the S&P 500 index fund. But those are the two types of funds that you definitely want to make sure that they have. I've seen, and let me say this, is that we're getting more to a situation where you're seeing that, with the exception of these target date funds that are taking over the 401k plan. And this is where if you're going to retire, let's say in 2030, then you would invest your money into a 2030 fund, and your money would take less risk as you got, and this is in theory, your investments would take less risk automatically for you as you approach retirement in 2030. Not always the case. I'm not real crazy about those funds. I do like the fact it's a strategy, and a strategy is better than no strategy at all. But I think that there's some flaws with that approach. But anyway, that's another story for another time. Talking about the index funds, so S&P 500 index, bond index, we can get it done with that. Exactly what you need. If you happen to get into a 401k plan that just has horrible selection, which I haven't seen one that I couldn't make work. I don't think that is the sole determining factor that determines if you want to be in that 401k plan or not. We'll get back to that in a second. The third tier is a 401k plan with a limited number of actively managed funds, and that's the ones that has no index funds at all. Like I said, you're probably not completely seeing that being the case, where you just have these actively managed funds and no index funds. And then fourth is if they offer a Roth 401k plan. Now, let me say this. As you know, if you listen to the program, I'm a big fan of the Roth 401k plan. If you had that, and especially if they were even let's just say you just had the 401k plan, you didn't have the ideal investments, you don't have the match, but the Roth 401k plan as it is by itself is worth the investment. It's a great investment strategy that really does benefit you down the road. Considering everything works out, it benefits you down the road at retirement as far as taxes go, because every dollar that comes out of that Roth 401k plan comes out tax free, and I can't think of a better strategy than that one. Can you imagine having a couple of $1 million, $3 million built up into a Roth 401k plan at retirement and being able to take tens of thousands of dollars of that out when you need it to live off of, tax-free, no taxes whatsoever. And I just think that's such a great deal. Now, as you look at those four, one of the things that just as a review, we've talked about that if there's a match, then you definitely use the 401k plan at least up to the match. If there are the index funds we talked about, that's another point on the favor of using that 401k plan. If it's got a Roth IRA, if it's got a Roth 401k plan in addition to that 401k plan inside your company benefit structure, then I would definitely use it. And I'm not talking about investments as much as I'm talking about the structure, the type of investment that it is, the Roth 401k plan. That's just assuming, and I doubt that will be the case, but that's just assuming that the politicians don't change anything as far as that goes. What's a hard no or a red flag that says maybe you need to really consider looking elsewhere? That would be, first of all, a 401k plan without a match. But if you had a 401k plan without a match and you had the two ideal index funds, then that kind of softens the blow of the 401k match. Because at the end of the day, the really big benefits that you're wanting to get out of the 401k plan beyond the best ones, which is the match and the right types of investments inside of it, is that you can invest your money. You can invest a lot of money, way more than you can invest into an IRA, and or do outside, and that's that pre-tax or pre-tax investment really does go a long way. So that's one of the things that you want to consider as you decide what's the best place, because as we've discussed, it's important to make sure that you're investing in the right combination of funds. And you don't want to just make the mistake of pouring money into a bad 401k plan and not getting the full benefit out of that as you invest into that for decades to come. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We're up against a break. Stick around. I'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern-day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Listen, if you got a question for me, go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Send that question through the Ask Bob. I'll get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. We're talking about the 401k plan and what a benefit-rich 401k plan looks like, and why does it matter, and why shouldn't there be more emphasis put on that benefit in your benefit package as you consider one company to another company. And if you do have a question about any of this, please go to the website and send it in. I'll get you taken care of. That's all at prudentmoney.com. So the reality is I would be happy with the right 401k plan with at least the right couple of indexes as we've talked about. I'd be real happy with that. pretty happy, let me say. You throw in a match, and I'm ecstatic. So for every dollar I put in, you're going to match that dollar, and you're going to participate into my retirement. Now, let's talk a little bit about what a rich benefit 401k plan looks like. If a match and an employer match for everything I put in and the right set of investments were not enough, how happy would you be with a benefit rich? And we're talking the top of the line. To show us some really good examples of this comes a Wall Street Journal article that came out actually this weekend, and it's called Inside America's Most Generous 401k Plans. And it goes as follows. The tax benefits of putting money into a 401k plan are well known, but not all 401k plans are created equal. Isn't that the truth? Take Costco, for instance. Many thousands of the retail's frontline hourly workers have managed to amass, get this, over $1 million in their 401k accounts, thanks in part to a contribution that Costco makes whether or not the employees themselves are putting money in. So you have a benefit plan that is set up to where Costco contributes an amount equivalent to 4% of their pay. And that percentage rises as employees accrue tenure. So workers who have been with Costco for 25 years or more receive a 9% contribution. The company also has a small match that allows employees to receive up to an additional $500 annually if they contribute $1,000. Not a bad deal. Anytime that you have a company that's wanting to do, and this is typically called a profit sharing contribution, where but this is something that seems to be locked in stone. Profit sharing is more if there is profit to give out in the form of benefit checks. But this is like a 401k match without you having to participate. Of course, we want to be participating and take advantage of this free money. But that is one example of a benefit-rich company. And they talked about and I've seen this, companies where a person starts off in their 20s and they work there. Well, I know which is not the norm. But if they've taken advantage of 401k plans through the years, through the decades up until retirement, they find that they have, $2 or $3 million put back into their plan. And these are, there was a story about a guy that was, a maintenance director, something like that, a director of maintenance, at SpaceX. And when it went public, this is Elon Musk, his company, when it went public, he was an instant millionaire just due to the stock that he was able to receive through the company through the years. And then there's the high rate match rate. The average company 401k match is about 4.7% of eligible salary, according to a Vanguard analysis of plans and manages. Only 6% of those plans offered a promised matching contribution, totaling 7% or above in 2025. Southwest Airlines, for example, offered a dollar-for-dollar match of up to 9.3% of employees' salaries in 2024. So just imagine with Southwest Airlines, great company, great benefit package, and you put in almost 10%, they put in almost 10%, 9.3% to be exact. Not a bad deal at all. Competing credit card giants Visa and MasterCard offer better than a dollar-for-dollar match. Visa will put in $2 for every $1 that an employee deposits in their 401k plan up to the first 5% of their pay. So basically, $2 for every $1 up to the first 5%. So if you don't participate in at least 5%, once again, you know the drill, you are throwing free money away. Both of those add up to a 10% total employer contribution, but employees don't need to put away as much in order to get it. But still, you don't want the match, even a generous match. You certainly don't want that to be a reason, because they're giving you so much money, to say, well, I don't have to save for retirement. continue or start putting the bigger percentages of that you can into the 401k plan along with this generous match, and you've got a great future retirement potentially waiting on you. Non-elective contributions, when the company gives you money and you don't do a thing. Non-matching contributions are often structured as profit-sharing plans, this was what I was talking about a second ago, or less commonly as an employee stock ownership plan. Of the plans included in Vanguard's report, 37% used both matching and non-matching contributions. 11% of those used solely the latter, which was non-matching contributions. The Altria group matches employees up to 3%, but add that to its profit-sharing plan, and workers get a whopping 13 to 17% employer contribution in total. The Aerospace Corporation, a nonprofit government contractor, also uses a 3% match, but provides a total of 12% for the longest tenured employees through added non-elective contributions. We talked about the companies. The ideal situation is to get involved with the company and stay with the company for decades and be able to retire there. And you don't see as much of that, but that's not to say those companies are not around. And generally speaking, what these companies like is to hire people for the long term and not have the turnover. And that's primarily why they put so much emphasis on the employee benefit plans. A company stock plan is also a real good potential retirement benefit. An employee stock ownership plan, a specialized retirement plan to which a company contributes shares of its stock, is often offered in combination with a 401k plan. ESOPs is what the short, better, easier way to say that, are most common in sectors including manufacturing, construction, and engineering. The structure is thought to give workers a sense of investment in a company's success, and in some circumstances provides the business a tax break. Another great way to get your retirement dollars. Then there's student loan benefits. Boeing, and you're going to see probably more of this, and what a great benefit. Boeing's benefits don't stop with a good match. It is among a growing group of employers that allow workers to receive matching contributions for some of their student loan payments. A Boeing worker who puts 10% of their salary towards paying off a qualified loan will get a matching amount from the company in their 401k plan. So, a situation where you really want to be able to pay off those student loans, but you can't. I mean, you want to do both. You want to put money into the 401k plan. You want to put money into the student loan and pay that off. Well, if you're putting 10% into your student loan, they're putting 10% into your 401k plan, which is a great, great deal. And that's like I said, a benefit that you're starting to really see companies start to participate in, because they understand the real challenge that people are going through with student loan debts and all the financial stress that can create. So that's a good representation, I think, to give you an idea of what's out there. If you're looking at two different companies and the income, the salary is pretty much as close to being the same, and the benefits look about the same, but they're giving higher matches, they're maybe giving profit sharing, they're maybe giving student loan benefits. All that really adds up. Now, the smart companies are going to be telling you that up front and the benefit-rich programs they have. And, of course, there's always the good old pension plan, which you see very little of anymore, but to where a employee puts in 20, 30 years into a company and walks away with a very good, strong pension benefit, or let's say it pays $3,000 or $4,000 a month for the rest of their life and their spouse's life. And, you add that with Social Security, you add that with other investments, that adds up to be a pretty good retirement as you put that together. So one last thing that you don't see that I wish that you would see more of is the investment into companies putting together educational programs in seminars, maybe webinars, that type of thing, to where they're giving informational, educational type presentations about money, how it works, how retirement works, how to maximize your 401k plan, and really invest into the educational aspect of money and help them to make better decisions and know, once again, what the right questions are to be that they should be asking. So you don't see that very many companies, which is a shame, because most of the time I think that they really kind of ruin the benefit of having a 401k plan by just putting a folder on your desk and saying, we need that filled out by the end of the day, as opposed to, let's put you through a couple of classes that we have, some webinars that I want you to watch. And if you need to talk to a financial advisor, here's the number of the person that you talk to. Now, that's the way to do it. But that will give you some things to think about in the event that you are comparing one job to another, and or making sure that you're taking full advantage of everything that your company is offering you in your retirement benefit. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you've got a question for me, please go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.